Sadly, it's only a quick trip up and down from Rotterdam, where I live, because tomorrow I'm off to Brazil, Sao Paulo, which is awesome, for a workshop and another conference. By the way, this is a picture of one of the most famous buildings in Rotterdam. Maybe some of you know them, the Cube buildings. Some of the people love them, others hate them. But one thing we can agree on is that they're definitely not normal. And that's why I like them. Because I like not normal. I like being special. I like things that don't do what everyone else is doing. I like it when people figure out their own ways of working. And I told a couple of people earlier, I'm going to do something special now. This is a bit of an experiment. I'm going to be more personal. It's summer. I'm already sharing more skin than I usually do. So why not a bit about my personal life? So a long time ago, when I was around 30, I knew that I loved kids. I love kids very much, but I didn't want to raise them. There's too much noise, too much distraction, too much of everything, but I really love kids. So I thought, okay, let's delegate. I will be a donor. I'm a donor dad. And at the time, I found a couple, 2 women who would love to have kids, but obviously there was a missing ingredient. And I had a job, very simple job for a young man of 30 years old. I literally had a job interview at the time with the 2 ladies. And this is the result. So awesome kids. Faber, who's now 19 years old, and Gilles, who was 17. I see them maybe once, twice per year, and that's fun, and we've been on vacation once or twice, and things like that, and super cool. And also, at the time, I donated through a medical institute, medical clinic, and that means that I didn't know what would come out of that. At some point, I only knew that at some point, that would probably be kids. And maybe a few of them would reach out because they want to know who was their biological dad. Well, lo and behold, this year, 3 popped up. Woohoo! This Tristan, who's 16, he has a single mom. And this is Veronique and Dinance. They also have a single mom. They are 15 and 13 years old. And it's super cool. And I share this because it's not normal. It's not what most people do. But this is how I am. I realized recently that throughout my life, I've always thought about there are things you can organize differently. You can break things apart. Everyone thinks about moms and dads, but did you know there are 4 different ways of being a father? There's being a biological father, which is what I am, the DNA proves it. There's being the social father, the one who feeds them and raises them and so on. I'm not the social father, thank God. There's the legal father, the one that the law recognizes as the father. That's the one you will inherit from. I'm not their legal father either. And then there's the emotional father. Well, that's what you decide yourself. How do you see the others? I call them my kids, but it's up to them to decide what they call me. And I see that as a thread throughout my life that I've always figured out how to rethink how things are being done. Because following just what everyone else is doing is sometimes so boring. It's sometimes so standard. There are other ways of organizing your life and organizing your work. So I've also been trying to do that recently, and things sort of clicked for me with ways of working. There are other ways of organizing ourselves. Let's not do what everyone else is doing. Just let's think for a moment and consider what the various options are. And that resulted in patterns. Now, there's a very famous book by Christopher Alexander, A Pattern Language. In the 70s of last century, he was the first one who came up with the term, and he offered patterns for cities, such as the town square. Everyone knows what a town square is. All cities have town squares. All cities have promenades, most of them, or things like that. But every city is different. You have to recombine those options in different ways to get a unique city, because Munich is not the same as Rotterdam. But we both have town squares and we have promenades. It's just in different combinations. So decompose, recombine. That's something you also heard this morning in the talk on hire. A pattern language is a coherent set of micro-solutions that can be used in many ways depending on context. Context-dependent solutions. I created a dad solution for me that fit my context that I'm very happy with, and the kids seem to be pretty happy as well. There's another book, Design Patterns. Maybe some of you recognize this one. This is very famous in the 90s for IT architects and designers, with model view controller, the singleton, the facade pattern, and so on. Recombine them in any way you want to create your unique architecture. By the way, the interesting thing back then was that some people implemented these 23 patterns into frameworks. I remember back then that you could purchase a package with the frameworks implemented in Java or implemented in .NET, and then you had all the patterns on your PC. And I was like, that was not the point of the book. The point was to only take the patterns that make sense to you and then recombine them. You should not install the framework to have all the patterns on your machine. Anyways, I was pretty happy with this morning's keynote. That means I can skip all the stuff on hire that I know, which is less than the keynote speaker Emmanuel had. But I was there 13 years ago, well, no, 11 years ago. I met Mr. Jiang, who was the one with the sledgehammers. He is actually the person who wrote the Chinese version of the forward, or the forward to the Chinese translation. That's how I should say it, of Management 3.0. So I was very proud about that. And at the time, they had just gone through that transformation of turning into an ecosystem of micro enterprises. And since then, I've been very inspired by this company, in particular Mr. Jiang, mainly because he said things like, he wanted to spend most of his day reading. 4 hours of reading, isn't that awesome? That means if your CEO is reading, he cannot just micromanage other people. Just focus on reading. I would love a job like that. Just read and listen to podcasts, and every now and then send a signal to the network. Nudge it a little bit in that direction, nudge in that direction, and then let 1,000 flowers bloom. That was his approach. So I've been looking for patterns that sort of enable us to create companies such as Hire. What are the micro solutions that you and I can adopt according to context to create our own unique solution? Like decompose father into biological father, social father, legal father, and emotional father, because those are 4 different ways of being a father. It doesn't have to be the same person. You can make your own combination, and then life is interesting if you make your own unique solutions. So the first pattern that I came up with is the base. Well, I didn't come up with it, actually. I just stole it from the Spotify model. And they stole it from other places, because it's a well-known pattern. A small number of people that self-organize and where they feel at home, where there's psychological safety, where there's trust and respect. This is the equivalent of the micro-enterprise at Hire, basically. It was, on average, I noticed is between 5 or 50 people. They're rarely larger than that. And within that unit, everyone trusts each other. This is where the Agile Manifesto, as it is originally written, applies, where you don't need written rules and so on, because everyone knows each other. It's just, that's where Agile from 2001 works. So you can call it a tribe or a clan or a business unit, whatnot. And as I said, this is the home that fuels all safety and recognition and belonging. But then, what else do we need within such a base? Because we might need teams. Well, there are some suggestions. I like the word crew, by the way, because a crew is a small team on a mission with a goal. The word team itself tends to be diluted these days. Last week I heard someone refer to their company of 15,000 people as a team, and I thought, that's an enterprise, dude. And that's not a team. Not the way I have used the word team. So the word team has become so meaningless, in my opinion. I like the word crew, which is still more closer to its original meaning. But you can use team, whatever you prefer. And then I found 4 patterns in team topologies that make total sense. These guys already did the work for us. They found 4 patterns that make sense. Like the stream-aligned team, I call it the value stream crew. It's the same thing. That is what we are familiar with, right? The self-organizing team, stream-focused, customer-oriented, Scrum teams, Kanban teams. We know how that works. Been there, done that. The interesting things are the exceptions. Oh, by the way, we draw them yellow usually across the organization, across the base in unFIX language. Then the exceptions, there are 3 exception team topologies. The first one is the enabling team. I call it the facilitation crew. It's practically the same thing. It's those who focus internally on enabling the others, facilitating them and helping them to deliver value. Think coaches and Scrum Masters or whatever your flavor of Agile is. The intent is the same. You help them. Now, in team topologies, they specifically say there should not be a permanent dependency on an enabling team. So they should pull out at some point, because the idea is to teach them, to hand it over to them. I am a bit more relaxed in that sense. My spouse has a personal trainer. I can tell you, when the personal trainer is on vacation, no exercise happens. And then I tell him, you could go have a run. You could do the exercise on your own. No, I'll wait for him to be back next week. Okay, whatever. Some people really like having their personal trainer, and athletes have permanent relationships with their coaches because coaches always raise the bar for them. It is a semi-permanent relationship, basically. So yeah, theoretically the coach could say, now you can do it yourself, but some teams really appreciate having those facilitators, those enablers, helping them out and always be better. So that's the purple ones. And then there's another one, the red ones. They are the complicated subsystem team in team topologies. I don't like that word, to be honest. It's a bit complicated itself. Now, the idea is sound. They say that sometimes there's a rare component or a subsystem and it's too complicated for other people to take care of. Imagine machine learning or cybersecurity or whatever. You have 15 Scrum teams and 2 people who have a vast amount of knowledge about that particular thing, a video codec. You cannot teach 15 Scrum teams all the intricate details about creating a video codec. It would just overload their brain. It's too much cognitive load. So that's why this is the exception, maybe intentionally red, as sort of a red flag. Try to have as few of them as possible, but sometimes there's no other way. They take care of that thing. But then I said, well, then it's not really about the component. The bottleneck is that knowledge, is that capability that you depend on of a few people who know a lot about a certain topic that they will have to help the others out with. So they sort of roam around. In less framework, they tend to call this the traveler pattern. I think it's basically the same thing. These people are available, they help the others. They cannot teach everyone to do the same thing because that makes no sense. So they offer their unique expertise. And then the last one that I borrowed is the platform crew. Well, you heard about platforms earlier at Hire. Same principle, some services have to be offered internally to the others. Think an API, think a self-service mechanism. Now in team topologies, this is usually IT focused. DevOps services or whatever, some basic architecture and infrastructure that is offered so that everyone else, the value stream crews, can deliver fast, continuously, and so on. But it doesn't have to be. I was at a company in Poland, my favorite example, a long time ago, 4 years ago, Future Processing in Katowice. They had kindergarten on site. 100 people, one base, lots of young ones with kids. They did want to take care of their own kids, unlike me. And they, in the morning, they arrive with the babies and toddlers. They dump them in the basement. And then by the end of the afternoon, 4 or 5, they picked them up and they would still be alive and healthy. That was the API. That was the contract with the platform team, the kindergarten team, the nursery team. We take care of your kids. Don't worry. You focus on customers. We take the worries off your minds. That's the idea of the platform crew. So they sit underneath and they help them focus on their work by offloading some of the worries, the stuff that the value stream crews have to take care of. And then I added a few more, 3 more that I thought were necessary. My favorite example is my smartphone. Last year I bought a Pixel 6 phone. It's over here counting the time for me. When I bought it, you know how it works with a new smartphone. You have to re-authenticate on every freaking app on your phone. It drives you completely insane for an entire weekend. So I had to make a payment on the bank and with the bank app, and it said, oh, this is the first time you're using it. Please authenticate. Oh, by the way, your password has expired. Please change your password on the website. Okay, so I go to the website, open the browser, old password, new password twice. Thank you so much. Please validate this with the app on your phone. But the app is not working. Because at first I have to change my password, but I cannot change my password because I first need to validate it up. I was stuck. I was stuck between 2 apps, well, an app and a website. I call this islands of agility. It's the typical outcome of an agile transformation. You have people working on the app, you have people working on the website, they deliver quite fast, but in between, life sucks for the customer. Because touch points are across all the apps and all the interactions with the customer, with the company. I don't care about app versus website, whatever. I just want to make a transaction, and it cost me half an hour of my life. I literally had to take the SIM out of the phone, put it back in the old phone, use that one to change the password, put the SIM back, and so on. Drove me nuts. I still feel the stress in my body right now. So this book said, examples abound of the crippling effects of agile business units that cannot work together to deliver a complete experience. We basically changed the functional vertical silos into horizontal product silos. Still silos. Still sub-optimization as far as the customer is concerned. So that's why I picked up the advice that maybe sometimes you need an experience team, a customer experience crew. They're not necessarily the product owners. They're people who do data analysis. They look at the data. They're business analysts. They're service designers, user journey mappers, whatever. People who analyze what is happening with that entire journey of our customers across all the touch points that we have, even including finance that sends invoices and the help desk that takes calls and so on. Is the entire journey satisfactory for our customers? If not, we have to feed the teams with ideas for improvement across the various apps and solutions that we offer. And then last but not least, the experience economy coincides with the gig economy. I think we deserve a similar solution on the other side. For our vendors, our gig workers, our suppliers, our partners, anyone that we depend on, they deserve a good experience too. A couple of years ago, Netflix was the only streaming company, basically. Now, not anymore. Heavy competition in the streaming space. They better deliver a good experience to the TV show makers, because if not, they go to Amazon Prime or Disney Plus or HBO Max or Apple, whatever, because they have choice. Yeah. So good experience is on both sides, necessary sometimes. And the last but not least, who takes care of the stakeholders? This is my management hero stuff that pops up here. It's over there, blue, intentionally blue, management hero color, the governance crew, I call it. Manage the system, not the people. Stay out of everything else. But someone has to manage that micro enterprise. This is also how Hire works. There is a CEO of that micro enterprise who is the point of contact from the perspective of the whole company. And however he or she manages the business, that's their concern. It's an independent company, but someone is signing contracts on behalf of that unit. That's the governance crew. So 7 patterns, 7 ways of organizing teams. And in other models, there's no distinction. Like, I'm sure some of you are familiar with Holacracy or Sociocracy. Everything is a circle. Everything is a circle, like calling everything a father. But there's actually at least 4 different kinds of ways of being a father. There's at least 7 different ways of being a team. There might be more, but I found 7. I think this is a good starting point. 7. Nice number, 7. And then another thing, I will not go into this, the team, the crews are the strong ties in the network. Anyone who's familiar with complex systems or network theory knows that strong ties have to be balanced with weak ties. The hubs in the network have to align with each other across longer distances. That's what guilds are for. Actually, I call them forums. I'm making them more important in the unFIX model. At least they should be as important as crews. Because if we do not make guilds, forums, as important, those long-term, long-distance connections, as important as the crews, then there will be other mechanisms for alignment, such as matrix organizations. We need to get rid of those, because they don't work. We have plenty of evidence that matrices have significant bad side effects. We can only get rid of those structures behind the scenes if we offer an alternative. And I think the forums, the guilds, should be elevated and become much more important. Then you can align along anything, technologically seasonal forums, business model forums, market forums, and so on. I'm not there yet. There was some talk on flexibility early this morning. Sometimes teams have to be formed fast. Sometimes you have no time to do all that team building stuff. When something happens here in Munich, and it needs to be on the news at 6 o'clock, some news station, TV station might send a camera crew and or a crew with a camera person and a sound engineer and an interviewer, and off they go. And I know one thing for sure, they don't have time to create a team canvas. They will not do forming, storming, norming, performing on their way to whatever was happening in the city center. The same with fire departments, same with hospitals, same with lots of different industries. They already know how to work with each other. They form teams on the spot and off they go. They have to hit the ground running. That means that the teaming stuff is done at another level, at the base level, at the micro-enterprise level. That's where they learn how to do teaming fast with each other. So that whenever something happens, 2, 3, 4 people, whoever is available, can go and address that risk or opportunity. This is mentioned in Heidi Helfand's book on reteaming, fabulous book, where she said that actually static teams are not very agile at all. If you insist that those boundaries have to remain stable, you might miss out on opportunities. And actually, there could be reasons for having dynamic teams also for the employee experience. Some people prefer having choice, moving from one team to another, because it helps their resume. It helps them enjoy working with different technologies in different contexts. I love this quote by Martin Fowler: "If it hurts, do it more often." Now, he meant it at the time for software releases. I mean, I'm so old, I remember shipping software on CDs. My God, that hurt. You shipped something, and the next day you found a bug. Oh my God. You have to ship the bug fix release, hoping, fingers crossed, that you don't find another one the next day. And then these came together in 2001 and said, you know what, do it more often. What? Yeah. Because if you do it more often, you'll find out how to not make it hurt, to make it easy. It's a breeze, releasing software these days. We got rid of that. And then for 15 years, I've been part of the Agile community, and coaches, consultants, including me at some point, have said, don't change your team. Don't change your team boundary, because you will hurt throughput, you will hurt velocity. Well, if it hurts, do it more often. Figure out how to make it not hurt. Because not doing it is treating the symptoms, right? is preventing the symptoms from appearing. There's a real problem there. You don't know how to do reteaming fast. You can split that. Teams, micro teams versus base. There's ways of doing going about it. So I made this picture to sort of make the different options more clear. There's two ways of thinking about team boundaries. The permanence, how long does the boundary exist? And is it permeable or not? Do people move in and out? So for example, the steady team is a team with a long existing boundary, a long-term boundary, and people do not really move in and out. That's the default option, you could say. This has been the standard suggestion in the Agile community for 20 plus years. And it's fine, it's no problem. It's in many cases a good option. However, there are alternatives. At Redgate Software, I saw the logo during the keynote. They have dynamic teams. Every now and then, people choose voluntarily to work on other teams. They have ceremonies for that. I believe it's annual, but you could do this more regularly if you want. People choose to move, and about 1/3 of people go and work somewhere else. And they like that. They like the choice that is offered. Over here, short-term teams with non-changing team boundaries. A flight crew. I'm sad to go back to Rotterdam tonight, so I will be on a plane with KLM. That's a typical mission team. Same team from start to finish. They don't change team mid-flight, not recommended. So same team from start to finish, but only for a few hours. It's the same team. And sometimes these last a few hours, sometimes last a few weeks or months, but not much longer. At Tesla, they do reteaming every 3 hours. Joe Justice has keynotes on that topic. He worked there for a year. He worked at a factory plant and says that every 3 hours they swarm to other things on the backlog and they choose who wants to work on the paint issue with me, who is with the paint thing, the paint problem. Oh yeah, I'll work with you on that. 3 hours, next time box. So they reteam all the time. As you can imagine, learning goes through the roof because within a couple of weeks, months, you've worked with everyone in the whole factory, from paint, engines, AI, you name it. Over here is the liquid team. Short duration, and team members change all the time, like the construction crew that worked on my house last year. I was making coffee for different people every morning, but they were always singing. They were always having fun, and they knew each other. And then one day there was the carpenter, and another day there was the person who did the glass, and they were all specialists. They knew how to work with each other. That worked in that industry. I like this example. When I published the unFIX model, Pipedrive reached out to me and said, hey, this looks suspiciously like what we have been doing. They have tribes, I call them bases, 17 or something bases, micro-enterprises, with one engineering manager, and then a couple of teams, but there's one launch pad that does maintenance and small bug fixes and the small stuff, basically, and then temporary mission teams. But it's the same people in the same tribe, about 20 people. And if you've been on Launchpad for too long, you're expected to go on a next mission. But if you've been on a mission is a new feature, a new minimal marketable feature. If you've been on a mission 2-3 times, you're expected to go back to the Launchpad. So there's a continuous rotation between Launchpad and mission teams. The developers love it because they can focus. Either they focus on maintenance and bug fixes for a while and technical debt, and they don't have to worry about new features. They support the mission teams. But then for half a year, they can focus on missions, and they don't have to worry about maintenance requests and all this stuff, because the Launchpad has their back. But they know whatever I build, I will have to maintain half a year from now. So you build it, you own it, still applies. This is a combination of these patterns. You see that? Temporary mission teams, and the Launchpad is a dynamic team. They figured out that there are more options to the concept of the team. They broke it apart, and they said, why not combine these two? Two different ways of being a team in one tribe. And we solve the same problem, but then in a very, very different way. It's unique for them. It's a unique context and a unique solution. So I said organization design should be like this, like Lego. I'm a big Lego fan. Any Lego fans in the room here? I'm sure there are Lego fans. All right. Any Playmobil fans? Boo! I didn't get it. I didn't get it when I was young. I love Lego. My brother loved Playmobil. I didn't get the idea of Playmobil. I mean, I could take my castle apart, and the next day it was a dragon. When my brother took his Playmobil castle apart, he had a broken Playmobil castle. It could not in any possible way be a dragon the next day. So a pattern language is an option list. It's not a shopping list. Some people ask me, where is this implemented? Well, you don't implement pattern libraries, right? That's not the idea. There's no city that has implemented the pattern language of Christopher Alexander. That makes no sense. The question makes no sense. Yes, there's a Miro template for you to play with, like there's a Lego box for you to play with. We have cards that you can download, and there's people playing with the templates and making their own unique solutions, which is super awesome. Various case studies on the website. Cards you can download, as I said, or that you can purchase. And there's even an app now, a plotter app, so you can do it online and make your own little design. I love that. Maybe people making their own solutions with what is available. The kids, once more, because I love my kids. By not being normal, it's sometimes difficult, that you're not the same as everyone else. But it also offers opportunities. Because this guy, he has no brothers or sisters. And if he had been in a normal family, that would have been it. No brothers and sisters. He also doesn't have cousins, because his mom has just one sister, and she doesn't have kids. So, very, very small family. But now, because he found a biological dad, actually he found several biological half-brothers and half-sisters. He's so excited. They're going to meet in August. They're very happy about that. And I'm happy for them. Now, this dude is an annoying little brat. I was at his birthday party last week. You know what he called me? He doesn't call me his dad. He calls me his doner kebab. It's amazing. 13 years old, and the little bastard is already funnier than I am. Anyways, so find your own way of creating your own work life, right? That's the idea. Break things apart, think about stuff, because the default is often just a combination of various options. Whether we're talking about families or whether we're talking about methods and frameworks, there are different ways of achieving things. There are lots of different kinds of teams. You break things apart, recombine them, and I think if we do that well, we end up maybe something like being higher. So thank you so much for listening, and I hand it over to Heidi.